today, we are going to analyze an episode of The Amazing World of Gumball, where Darwin freaks out, goes totally crazy, hysterical, insane. He becomes extremely paranoid and tries to protect everyone in a very twisted way. So we will be able to extract a lot of philosophy from this episode, which taught me a lot about freedom, censorship, good, and evil. Now, without further ado, let's go. We start with an advertisement aimed at the school children, in which the narrator warns about the dangers of seemingly harmless things because the main character gets hurt very easily. In fact, I even start to think that the character is kind of dumb. This advertisement, besides traumatizing the children, talks about the importance of being careful. When the advertisement ends, we even see the teacher screaming in fear while all the children are shocked. It's the typical reaction when something very strange happens, and you don't even know how to react properly. At that moment, the animators manage to create a perfect drawing to express this feeling. Despite everyone being shocked, Darwin becomes mega paranoid. He starts controlling things that aren't even that dangerous, like helping Gumball cross the street saying, "I love you too much," after Gumball asks why he did that. Right after, a woman asks if everything is okay, and Darwin reacts with a karate chop on her, showing that when you become very paranoid or hysterical about a situation, as Gumball himself said, you can end up hurting other people. In my view, the best thing to do in these moments when you are very nervous and emotional is to stop completely. Try to breathe calmly, even if you are very anxious to do something. Believe me, in these moments, the best thing to do is to do nothing, because if you do something, you might end up worsening the situation, like Darwin, who ended up hurting another person. The episode continues, and we see that Darwin becomes increasingly crazy. Here, the episode breaks the fourth wall, and Darwin puts up child censorship, making parts of Gumball disappear and censoring the words he says, including swear words, because, as they say, words hurt and are therefore not safe either. It's really crazy to think how much words can offend people or change our perception of things. For example, I recently saw that some Eskimos are able to see different types of white because they label the types of white with different names, which changes their perception of the world around them. This is very interesting. We continue and see that they started eating pure minerals and proteins. When I say pure proteins, I mean pure, ingesting the molecules themselves. And Darwin says this is because all the foods we can eat can be contaminated in some way, from pesticides in hormone-filled meat to mercury in fish. Milk can't be digested, sugar makes you fat. Here, there is a very interesting point to be raised. Basically, everything we do has risks and bad probabilities. Any movement we make can have terrible consequences. Eating some poorly washed vegetable in a restaurant or at your own home can eventually make the body like this. And these white things are worms. Yes, this image also scared me quite a bit when I saw it, but it's a very rare case, so don't worry. The point is that everything we consume is always full of risks, and we are at risk all the time doing anything. The unpredictability of the world can be fatal for many things that appear to be healthy. For example, a vegetable is supposed to be something good probably, but there could be something in that green thing that can make you very sick over time. You can eat ice cream every day and never get sick in your life, but then you eat, for example, a carrot, discover you have an allergy, and die suddenly. Okay, this is a very absurd situation that I hope has never happened in the history of humanity, but it is very crazy to think that things can go wrong in a few seconds. The problem with this in the episode is that Darwin, when he realizes this, ends up becoming paranoid, making him a super protective person. His paranoia is arrogance because it makes him think he knows what's best for people. Thus, he convinces people that there is a danger there and that only he knows what's best for them. How many people have already committed absurdities in the name of a common good? Here, I can even paraphrase Socrates when he says that no one does evil thinking of doing evil, but the one who does evil does it thinking he is doing good. This means that at no point is Darwin ill-intentioned or thinking he is doing something bad for his family. He really thinks he is doing good for those people. But the question is he really? And how to get him out of this paranoia? How to save a person from their own experience? How to convince someone who is sure they are in danger that they are not? The episode continues and we see that Roadrunner is on TV and Gumball is having fun with it, but Darwin calls the show to complain that it is too violent. He says that this violent behavior with dynamite can be imitated by a child, which doesn't make sense. Even Wile E. Coyote himself says this. Where would a child buy dynamite? So Darwin presents an argument to Wile E. Coyote that convinces him not to use certain types of tools to catch Roadrunner, asking if his channel and sponsors don't care about our children. He uses a very simple persuasion technique, which consists of using something controversial to the message that the person, or in this case, the show wants to convey, and then knowing what the show wants, that is, money from sponsors renting advertising space between the show's intervals, Darwin uses this to convince the show to follow his rules, because they don't want to send a bad message and get a bad reputation, which would make the sponsors lose money because of the show, and the show's owners lose money with the sponsors leaving. This episode has a very profound message about how censorship can quickly come to our society, with people convincing and manipulating others that something is wrong. After all, a child really wouldn't have easy access to dynamite, or at least in the real world shouldn't. Now here's the question. Obviously, common and hysterical people like Darwin cannot define general censorship because he doesn't really understand what reality is, what is good for society. If the power to censor is entirely in the hands of the government, it can end up using this power to increase information and may compromise or manipulate data to convince people of other things. The same can happen when lies are invented, and over time society will begin to believe what is being published, even if it is a lie. A great example of this can happen when companies, if given the power to censor, will create monopolies based on their own interests and profits. Now, if we can't trust anyone with this power, then what are we going to do? At the same time, if we don't prohibit lies, the world will become further from the truth, and people will become more convinced that they are following the best path, when in fact they are heading straight for a cliff. Censorship, truth, and freedom are three topics that are all interconnected in a remarkable way, and I just hope that we reach the truth and that every lie that tries to falsify historical truth is destroyed over time. Darwin starts to manipulate even the TV, making them believe that the censorship was for their own good. Again, it may have been with the best of intentions, but there is no logic in banning cartoons. Soon after, we see that the whole family is chained up by Darwin because, again, he thinks it is best for people's safety. Maybe, yes, perhaps you would survive longer chained to a chair with food and water than going to the bakery and on an unusual day getting run over. This is an absurd example, but chained to a chair with food and water, considering this example, you would certainly avoid that accident. But the question is, would that life be worth it? Is a life spent entirely in a cave worth it? A life without risks to be taken, without nervousness, without a little fear here, without any anxiety, would that life be worth it? Well, over time, the power decided what is good and what is bad, making Darwin more and more controlling, turning him into a toxic person who doesn't respect other people's wishes. Besides that, he became a dictator over time because he tried to conquer the city as well, saying that all resistance would be punished. Imagine that most dictatorships in the world have emerged with more or less a similar idea, that their dictators knew what was best for the people, except Nero. Nero was crazy out of his mind, and clearly the path we least want is that one, where we are trained like animals. At the end of the episode, the Watterson family creates an entire plan to remove Darwin from power, and in this finale, there is a lot of breaking the fourth wall, which really fits the theme of the episode. This makes everything quite fun when we finally have Gumball confronting Darwin and turning all of Darwin's cameras against him, making him have a self-reflection that in fact he is not a hero but the villain, and this in some way opens his eyes. In the end, I think everyone needs a little self-reflection to spend at least a few minutes thinking about whether the decisions we make are right or wrong. If the good you want to do is really the good that the person chooses to receive. After all, everyone has free will to do whatever they want, and you can't force anyone into anything. Understand, and looking more at ourselves, we accept that sometimes we need to take certain risks to live. This episode shows us that we can only be free when we recognize that we have no guarantees of safety. Life is a journey of uncertainties and unpredictabilities, and even when we make careful and responsible choices, life can still surprise us with unexpected and unpleasant events. As the historical philosopher Epictetus stated, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to what happens to you that matters. This means that although we can't control everything that happens to us in life, we have the ability to control how we respond and adapt to circumstances. Uncertainty and insecurity can be seen as opportunities to grow and develop our resilience. As Nietzsche said, that which does not kill us makes us stronger. And by facing challenges and uncertainties, we can discover strengths and resources within ourselves that we didn't know we had. Life can be uncertain and insecure, but that doesn't mean we should live in fear or anxiety. By recognizing our own freedom, responsibility, and adapting to the constants we face, we can find meaning and purpose even in difficult times. You can call me Vinny, and I'll stop here. Enjoy the video and subscribe to the channel to see more. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.